Hey class, I hope everybody's doing well today. My name is Matt Powers, and I am presenting on Robert Hayden's Those Winter Sundays. Robert Hayden was born on August 4th, 1913. He was raised in a pretty fraught environment. His parents separated before he was born, and he was raised by a foster family next door. Um, they were very argumentative and very poor, and the arguments would sometimes culminate in physical violence against each other and also Robert. This led to a lifetime of him battling some pretty crippling depression. He attended Detroit City College in 1936 when he dropped out to study and write about black culture for the Federal Writers Project, which was actually a New Deal program. He went back and completed his bachelor's degree at the University of Michigan, and then he went on to receive his master's degree from there as well. He was born and raised a Baptist, but he later converted to the Baha'i faith, and I really hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which essentially preaches the sanctity of all major religions and the equality of all people. I had never heard of that religion, but it's really neat. It's highly structured and very, very democratic. They constantly are electing local governments all the way kind of to the top, so it's really interesting. He served as consultant in poetry to the Library of Congress from 1976 to 1978, and that role is now known as the U.S. Poet Laureate, and he was actually the first African American to hold that position. His publishing career stretched over decades. It included his collections of poetry, Heart Shape in the Dust, The Lion and the Archer, Figure of Time poems, Ballad of Remembrance, Words in the Morning Time, The Night Blooming Cereus, I think I say that, and Angle of Ascent, new and selected poems. So I think that the best way to teach you about those winter Sundays and Robert Hayden in general is to explore a common theme that he would talk about a lot in his poetry. For this purpose, I have selected Frederick Douglass, a poem that celebrates the life of Frederick Douglass and the virtues of freedom and equality for all. When it is finally ours, this freedom, this liberty, this beautiful and terrible thing, needful to man as air, usable as earth, when it belongs at last to all, when it is truly instinct, brain matter, diastole, systole, reflex action, when it is finally won, when it is more than the gaudy mumbo-jumbo of politicians. This man, this Douglass, this former slave, this Negro beaten to his knees, exiled, visioning a world where none is lonely, none hunted, alien. This man, superb in love and logic, this man shall be remembered. Oh, not with statues' rhetoric, not with legends and poems and wreaths of bronze alone, but with the lives grown out of his life, the lives fleshing his dream of the beautiful, needful thing. Those Winter Sundays, which is what I'm presenting on, but I'm not actually going to read because I'm assuming that everyone watching this has read it before. It is a poem in which Robert Hayden faces the trauma of his childhood. He writes about fearing the chronic angers of that house and speaking indifferently to his father. His father rises early to warm the house, and the changing temperature mirrors the speaker's shifting emotions. It starts out very cold and talks about the blue-black cold of the house, and then talks a lot about the fire and how warm it is. He realizes that his father makes sacrifices for him and that he knew nothing of love's austere and lonely offices when he was young. What's fascinating is that both these poems explore the beauty of individual humanity in very different ways. Frederick Douglass celebrates the life of a man who fought for freedom and equality for everyone. He is an incredibly important part of American history because of the sacrifices he made. Those Winter Sundays celebrates the life of a far more flawed man. Though he is prone to anger and doesn't express his love verbally, the speaker's father also expresses his love through sacrifice. His hands are rough from physical labor, and he rises early to brave the cold on his day off. He does this to warm the house and to make the speaker's life more comfortable. These actions are much smaller than those undertaken by Frederick Douglass, but they are still beautiful expressions of love. Both the speaker of those winter Sundays and the lives that grow out of Frederick Douglass's life are indebted to the subjects of their respective poems. Though racism is still a huge problem in America, all progress towards equality has been bought by Frederick Douglass and those who choose to follow in his footsteps. Similarly, the speaker of those winter Sundays comes to realize that his life could not be possible without the sacrifices of his father. It feels like an immensely personal poem in which Robert Hayden accepts that his father was far from perfect, yet he forgives him and thanks him for the sacrifices he made. It's also very interesting that both poems are about father figures and how they express themselves differently, essentially, and how both of those things are equally loving, just in very different ways. This understanding of everyone's equal and shared humanity was crucial to Robert Hayden. It is a common theme explored in much of his poetry, and we can see it in much of his life. His conversion to the Baha'i faith and his rejection of black separatist movements show that he truly believed that real progress can only come after complete forgiveness and acceptance of each other. Overall, I really, really enjoyed the poem. I'm really glad that we got to read it in this class. And Robert Hayden is very interesting, and I would really say anyone should look his stuff up. It's very good. But thank you, and I hope everyone has a good day. Bye.